All right, so get this. We're diving into a book that no one can read.
A book no one can read.
Yeah. It's been stumping experts for centuries. It's called the Voynich Manuscript. Think bizarre plants, strange symbols, an alphabet that's completely undecipherable. It's like something straight out of a Dan Brown
Oh,
novel.
I've heard of that. It's that mysterious book, right? The one they keep at Yale.
Exactly. And lucky for us, there's a great YouTube video from Curious Archive called The Book Nobody Can Translate that breaks down all the weirdness. And that's what we'll be using for this deep dive.
Sounds intriguing. It's almost like some knowledge is just lost to time, isn't it?
Right. It makes you wonder about the limits of what we can actually know. But let's start with the manuscript itself. I mean, have you seen the illustrations?
The illustrations are wild. They're full of these strange plants and symbols. Some look vaguely familiar, kind of like real plants, but then they're all mixed up in these impossible ways.
It's like someone took a fern and stuck a sunflower on top and then gave it the roots of a carrot. Like what?
And the thing is, only a handful of them can actually be matched to real plants. There's the wild pansy, for instance, and a type of maidenhair fern. But the rest, it's anyone's guess.
So could these fantastical botanical creations be some kind of visual code? Like, are we missing something?
That's one of the big mysteries. We also see cosmic wheels and astrological symbols, things that were super important back in medieval medicine, and even, believe it or not, plant gathering.
Hold on, wait. You're telling me that how people harvested plants was connected to the stars?
Oh yeah, astrology was woven into pretty much every aspect of life back then.
That's incredible. Imagine an apothecary consulting their star charts just to figure out when to pick some herbs.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Though the celestial diagrams in the Voynich Manuscript, they don't actually line up with the zodiac models we use today. It's like they're hinting at a completely different system of knowledge.
A different way of understanding the universe. But the mystery just keeps getting deeper when you think about the language. Because remember, it's not just pictures. It's written in a script that no one has been able to decipher.
And it's not like we're talking about a simple code here. This is something that has baffled experts for centuries. You know, it really makes you question what the author's intent was. Were they trying to protect some kind of secret knowledge? Maybe it was a challenge for future generations, or even just, a very elaborate medieval prank.
It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it, to think that someone centuries ago could create something that still baffles us, even with all our technology today.
Ah,
But before we go too far down the rabbit hole of theories, let's talk about what we do know about the manuscript's journey through time. Where did it come from? How did it end up at Yale?
well, the known history starts in 1912 when this book collector, Wilfred Voynich, stumbled upon it. And our source describes him as having these very cool spectacles, which I just love.
I can picture him now in some dusty antique shop, carefully examining this bizarre book, maybe even adjusting those very cool spectacles for a closer look.
Right, and from there, the manuscript eventually made its way to the Beinecke Library at Yale University. That's where it is now, carefully preserved and studied. Researchers have actually managed to trace its ownership back to the 16th century to Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II.
Rudolph II, the one who was obsessed with all things arcane and unusual.
That's him. So even before Voynich found it, this book already had a bit of a mysterious aura.
It's like it was destined to be enigmatic. But what about before Rudolph II? Where did it come from originally?
Well, that's where things get frustrating, because despite this trail of owners we've been able to piece together, the manuscript's true origins remain a complete mystery.
A real historical cliffhanger. So we've got this mysterious book with its strange illustrations, a script no one can read, and a history full of gaps and unanswered questions. It's enough to make your head spin. But let's see if we can untangle at least one thread here. Who might have created this enigmatic work?
Right, well, there are a few frontrunners. One is the 13th century friar, Roger Bacon. Now, what makes him so interesting is that he wasn't just a religious figure, he was also a renowned scholar, an early scientist, and a philosopher.
Wait, so we're talking about like a real-life Indiana Jones character here. A friar who was also a scientist and maybe even a code maker?
He was definitely ahead of his time. Bacon really advocated for experimentation and observation, which, in the 13th century was pretty radical, and he really believed in the power of math and codes to understand nature.
Okay, I can see why he'd be a suspect, but I'm guessing he's not the only one in the lineup.
Oh, definitely not. There's another intriguing possibility, a 15th century Italian engineer named Giovanni Fontana. Fontana was known for his inventive designs and these really detailed notebooks he kept. They were full of sketches of machines and contraptions.
So is the connection that his artistic style is similar to what we see in the manuscript?
Exactly. There are definitely some stylistic parallels. And let's not forget, Fontana was interested in cryptography and secret codes, too. He even created a book of coded messages using illustrations and symbols.
Okay, now that's a pretty strong link. It sounds like both Bacon and Fontana had the knowledge and the, let's say, personality to pull off something like the Voynich Manuscript. But how do we know it wasn't someone else entirely, someone whose name has been lost to history?
Ah, see, that's the tricky part. While these are both very plausible candidates, there's no definitive proof linking either one of them to the manuscript. It's totally possible that there's a third, completely unknown individual out there, a mastermind, whose name we may never know.
It's both exciting and frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Like the mystery just keeps getting deeper. But here's a question. What if this isn't a serious work at all? Could the Voynich Manuscript be, an elaborate hoax, like a medieval prank, to mystify and confuse anyone who comes across it?
It's definitely a possibility worth considering. Think about the time period when the manuscript was probably created, the early 15th century. It was a time of massive intellectual change.
Oh yeah, totally. The Renaissance was in full swing. New ideas were popping up everywhere.
Exactly. So a book like the Voynich Manuscript, with all its strange imagery and that undecipherable script, it might have actually fit right in with all that experimentation and intellectual playfulness.
It's like back then, pushing the boundaries of what was considered knowable was just the norm. Kind of reminds me of those illuminated manuscripts from that period, the ones with fantastical creatures and all those crazy details.
Oh, that's a great comparison. There was a real sense of blurring the lines between art and science back then. And speaking of blurring lines, what about the alchemical imagery in the Voynich Manuscript? Those weird symbols and plants we were talking about.
Right. Alchemy was a big deal back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, huge. It was this fascinating mix of science, philosophy, and mysticism, all about transformation and trying to unlock the secrets of the universe. Some scholars think that the Voynich Manuscript might actually be some kind of alchemical text.
Whoa, so like a secret recipe for turning lead into gold?
Well, maybe not that literally, but perhaps a symbolic representation of some deeper philosophical ideas, or even, a practical guide to alchemical processes, but deliberately encoded to keep it all hush-hush.
Ooh, secret societies and hidden knowledge. That's right up my alley.
Right. Imagine a secret order of alchemists using the Voynich Manuscript as their handbook, trying to transmute metals or find the elixir of life.
That would be so cool. Okay, but let's get back to that prank theory for a minute. If someone did create this as a hoax, who exactly would they have been trying to fool?
That's a good question. Maybe it was intended for a small group of intellectuals, like an inside joke amongst the super smart people.
Sort of like a medieval escape room?
Ah, exactly. Hey, check out this crazy book I made. Bet you can't figure it out. Or, it could have been the work of some solitary scholar, someone who just loved playing with language and creating puzzles.
Oh, I can definitely picture that. A little bit of a recluse, hunched over their desk, meticulously crafting this elaborate hoax just for their own amusement.
It definitely says something about their personality, doesn't it? Someone who loves a good challenge, someone who wants to create something truly unique and impenetrable.
Like they're saying, I dare you to understand this. And centuries later, we're still trying.
We really are. But even if we never fully figure out why the manuscript was made, just the journey of trying to decipher it is fascinating in itself. And there have been some pretty incredible attempts,
Well, yeah, for sure. Over the years, the Voynich Manuscript has attracted all kinds of brilliant minds, cryptographers, linguists, even computer scientists. And yet, it's still largely undeciphered. Why do you think that is? Is the code just that complex?
Yeah.
Or are we missing something fundamental in the way we're approaching it? It's like we're trying to force fit this puzzle piece, right? We're so used to language having rules, grammar, syntax.
Right. But what if the Voynich Manuscript completely throws those rules out the window?
Exactly. It's like, what if we don't even know what the picture on the puzzle is supposed to look like?
We're missing that framework, the context. Imagine trying to decipher like an alien message. You might see patterns, but without a Rosetta Stone, you're kind of just guessing.
So maybe instead of trying to make the Voynich Manuscript fit into our idea of language, we need to change our thinking completely. Like, what if it's not a language at all, not in the traditional sense?
Now, that's an interesting thought. Some researchers think it could be a visual language, where the meaning is in the pictures themselves.
So not words, but images.
Right. Or something that might be a musical notation system, waiting for the right melody to unlock it.
Wait, hold on. This book could be sheet music.
It's a crazy thought, isn't it? It really makes you think about what communication can be. We get so stuck in our own ideas about language, about what knowledge is.
It's a good reminder that there's so much we still don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day someone will crack the code.
Or maybe it'll always be this enigma. But even if we never know for sure, just trying to figure it out, that's what's amazing.
Exactly. It shows how curious we are, our need to understand the unknown. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, all these strange illustrations, that unbreakable code.
Secret messages, lost languages, maybe even a medieval prankster messing with us from beyond the grave.
But the biggest takeaway, the world is full of mysteries. Things that don't have an easy answer. The Voynich Manuscript is like a symbol of that. It reminds us to stay curious, keep asking questions.
And never stop exploring. Who knows what other secrets are out there just waiting to be discovered?
Well said. Keep diving deep, everybody. You never know what you might find. Until next time, happy decoding.